back to another episode of At That Moment. Today we are actually going to try a new recipe. It's a Pioneer Woman's recipe. I love her cooking show, and honestly I was just getting a little bored with dinner and the dinner rotation, so I was like, let me give it a shot, see how it is. Maybe it's something I can add to the rotation. It's a creamy red pepper chicken. So I really like how her website is really print friendly. It's easy to browse. I don't know, overall sometimes if you try to print a recipe, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack and then it doesn't print right, but hers is pretty good. So this one is a creamy spinach and red pepper chicken. Printed it should look like this, but we all know never looks like a photo. But we're gonna give it a shot. It says it only cooks for 20 minutes and takes 10 minutes to prep, so it should be fairly quick. I'm gonna do it over rice. I probably would prefer it over mashed potatoes, but I'm gonna give it a shot. So here we go. So the kitchen is like destroyed because last night I was up until like midnight making cinnamon rolls for boss's job. He had a training, so we did cinnamon rolls since it was super early, you know, something quick to go with coffee, tea, all of that good stuff. I actually used the BuzzFeed Tasty recipe. I like it because it's super simple, and some of the recipes for cinnamon rolls require the dough rise for like hours, and don't nobody got time for that. Alright, so like any recipe, it says heat the pan. She always uses skillet if you watch the show. I don't have a skillet. That's on my list. I need to get one. But we're going to go with this pan. So heat it over medium heat, and then we need to add 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So, 2 tablespoons. And 2 tablespoons. I want to let this heat up, the olive oil and the butter melt, and then I'm going to add in the garlic, onion, and roasted peppers. I'm actually about to cut that while this heats up. So this recipe actually calls for 4 cloves of garlic, 1 medium pepper, and 1 medium onion. But you can modify that, I'm sure, based on your liking. So if you're not a big pepper fan, I wouldn't say put the whole pepper in. Same thing for onion and garlic. I'm going to do more garlic than I normally do. I'm going to use the whole pepper because we are big peppers fans. And this is a pretty large onion, so I'm going to use most of it, but not all of it. To leave the peppers in strips. says cooks. The recipe calls for you to cook and stir for 2 to 3 minutes. For me, I know I personally want to make sure these peppers get softer. So yeah, I'm gonna set the timer for 5 minutes and then we'll go to the next step. Alright, 5 minutes are up. Everything was so good. It smells freaking amazing. In the background you probably hear YouTube playing. So next, the recipe calls for the spinach, and this particular recipe wants 10 ounces of spinach. If you ever cook with spinach, you know when you put it on the stove, it withers down so small. So I'm going to put the whole bag in now because we are big spinach fans, and with this Prego belly, I definitely need the spinach. Now we wait for the magic to happen. I'm going to give it a second to kind of get hot. I'll probably pop the top on it so it'll go quicker. Next, the recipe calls for 3 of the Roma, I think it's pronounced Roma, tomatoes. If you get the recipe, it tells you to purchase 4. I figured the 4th one may be for topping. So I'm going to dice these and then add that, and then it said add salt and pepper. So I'm going to go ahead and jazz that up, but it smells amazing. For 3. He's not a big cooked tomato fan. This looks amazing. You see how the spinach is like gone basically. Alright, salt and pepper is added. Next it says add the heavy cream, and I'm going to turn the heat down a little for that, and we're supposed to add 1 1/4 cup. So I'm going to let that simmer. I ended up turning my heat down to 4 over medium high. So we're going to let that do its thing. Y'all, this smells so good. So next we have to add the cream cheese. I have cream cheese here. You only need 4 ounces. This is 8 ounces, so obviously I'm gonna cut it in half. And then it said Parmesan cheese. It says 3/4 of a cup. I may add a cup because we like things a little cheesy around here. But look at this. Look at that yumminess. So I did dice my cream cheese. One, because it melts easier. I don't think the recipe called for it, but I know I have stuck a block of cream cheese in a recipe and it took forever to melt. I'll let that melt and add in the Parmesan cheese. this melt for about 5 minutes, give or take. The recipe said 3, but I think it's going to take a little longer for the cream cheese to melt. If you have ever followed a recipe verbatim, you notice that depending on your stove and your cookware, things may be extended or delayed in terms of timing. Alright, so after the cream cheese has melted, pretty much all of it has melted, I did go in and add more pepper, more so because I'm craving spicy right now. We like things a little spicy. And a tad bit of salt. Next, it said take it off heat. So I turned it off actually. Take it off heat. And we're going to work on the chicken next. Alright, I have my chicken here. We're going to dive into this in a minute. But over here, I took a little sample out to try it. Like, you can't be a chef and not try your food. So I took a little sample out. Let's see how it is. Hold on, let me flip the camera so you can see it. Alright. It's really good. And not even exaggerating. Really creamy. Creamier than I thought it was going to be for some reason. But it's going to be really good over the chicken. And I'm going to do it over rice. As you've seen, I cut the chicken in half. It said about 1/4. It's completely up to you how deep you want it. Some of these chicken breasts are pretty thick, so I didn't cut them all the way through. And then I just put salt and pepper on the outside. I'm about to stuff it now with that mixture or the creaminess that we just cooked up. Alright, to cook it on the stove top, it says set it at medium high. Take a second skillet, second pan, same thing, olive oil and then butter. So the recipe calls for toothpicks to keep this chicken stuffed and closed. So I'm going to stick these with toothpicks. The olive oil is almost done. So this is how it looks stuffed. And we're going to put the toothpicks in. Pop them in the pan. This is like super ready to go. The recipe calls for you to cook the chicken 4 minutes both sides, and then you're gonna pop it in an oven to cook it, so don't worry about if it's not completely done. Alright, I'm washing dishes as I go because that is a lifesaver. But I'm about to flip this chicken now. It's been about 4 minutes on both sides, and then I can get the other one in and the oven is ready. Alright, I'm gonna take these up. Like I said, of course they're not done. They're going into the oven on 400 for additional pretty much until you know they're done. So for these, they're pretty thick, so I know I'm going to probably cook them for an additional 20 minutes at least. And I have to put this one in. And the very last one in the oven. There you go. Alright, so the timer just went off for the chicken. I did put it back in on low broiler for 5 minutes just so I could get the skin a little crispier. I have the rice on, so once that's done, I'm going to place the chicken back into the leftover creamy mixture, kind of toss it in it, and then I'll plate it.